Hi, friends. It's Sarah, the fat culture critic. So, this is going to be kind of a complicated one, bit rambly, but uh, I have some thoughts I need to get off my chest about Drag Race. I just felt the need to do that. I love Drag Race. I mean, complicated because it always is, but as a person who's done like costuming and stuff, I love the artisanship, the costuming and the creativity and the obviously I love the queerness, Um I love like people collaborating in creation. That's just something I love. And that's the part I was like, I kind of to me the a lot of the drama is tends to be a bit of like a well, that's just kind of the medicine. It's kind of like it's the eat your roughage kind of thing. But I know for a lot of other people, the drama is the thing they want. This is the thing. It's reality TV is always a bit of not unlike drag. It's a mix of authenticity and artifice. And I love that we periodically get these wonderful, authentic moments of like queer people sharing their stories and fellowship with one another. It can be really beautiful. I loved last season of Canada's Drag Race. Had the most beautiful like connections because Jaylene Time was there. This who is an older Indigenous two-spirited drag queen, and she was there for the younger queer and Indigenous queens, and they had wonderful bonding moments. Canada's Drag Race is kind of my favorite iteration. Not like I don't know, it's just I guess as a Canadian, it's just speaks to me. And there was a couple years ago on Canada versus the World when my favorite queen, Victoria Scone, was on and had these wonderful moments with Silky Nutmeg Ganache. It was two fat queens, two big queens, and two big people, sort of bonding over their different gender experience and their different experience of fatness. And it was it was one of that's probably top drag race moment for me. I love Victoria Scone because finally there was a queen I could find attractive. Not that the dolls and the cis gay men aren't beautiful. They are, but it was, we finally had a sapphic. That was delightful. But yeah, so I have loved Drag Race for a long time. I was introduced to it by a friend I used to costume with, and we used to bond over it together. Yeah. But every so often it's kind of tricky because although it's one of the few places that we have reliably had some fat representation, where bigger bodies are sometimes celebrated. Also, there's been some really sticky moments around fat representation and narratives around fatness. This last season, there was a roast. The roasts are often frustrating, but there was a roast where a whole bunch of skinny queens were roasting fat queens and just making fat jokes, just making lazy fat jokes. And often there is sort of a narrative that fat queens have fit to sort of appeal to RuPaul's humor, which tends to be a lot of food jokes. And isn't it funny? I'm fat. It's not it gets old. It gets old. But at least Drag Race has always been somewhat of a space for large femme people, um, large, larger queens, larger people, to take up space and to, you know, participate, even if so far only Lawrence Chaney has ever won. Um, it's always it tends to be small queens who win. And there have been a number of knee injuries. um, I'm not sure health and safety is really reckoning with the needs of larger bodies. But anyway, point being, it's complicated. But this last episode of uh, All Stars 10, it crossed a line into something we really need to have a conversation about. And it revolves around the Mistress Isabelle Brooke, her weight loss, and the narratives being spun around it. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with protocol around drag, I will be using she/her pronouns because Mistress is the persona, and we use she/her pronouns for the persona. Um, the uh, the cis man portraying her, Mistress is his creation. Some queens are trans women themselves or gender non-binary. Some the queen persona is more of themselves than for others. I think this is a creation. Where the line is between the creation and the person is something that is for them to know. That's private. The public is the persona, Mistress Isabelle Brooks. So that's what we will be talking about, the public persona as presented in Drag Race All Stars and Drag Race, which is complicated because with unscripted TV, with the way that reality TV is edited, of course, Mistress is not fully responsible for any narratives that are spun around her work. She's responsible for the work she does. So it's complicated. So I'm not looking to assign any blame. I want to talk about the narratives that are being spun, not who is spinning the narratives. Because I don't think anyone is consciously thinking about creating narratives that are perpetuating anti-fat bias, but that is what's happening. And it is always complicated to talk about a public person's intentional weight loss because a person's body is very much, their own business. I believe very much in bodily autonomy and neutrality, and what you do to and with your body is that doesn't hurt anybody else is your business. But when it comes to narratives that we spin around that, the way that you talk about weight loss, that's when it can harm others. And so that's the sort of space in which we do need to have to think, to be thoughtful, and to discuss, how one approaches these, and how it gets spun in the press and who is watching. Because remember, Drag Race is very popular among queer youth, who are a demographic likely to have some body issues. Also, young women as well. The current season of All Stars is treating. There were two people in the current season of All Stars 10, Mistress Isabelle Brooks and also Ginger Minj, who, in a hiatus between the early brackets and the semifinals, lost significant amounts of weight. They didn't say it was Ozempic, but it's quite probable, or some other intervention has clearly been done. And the show has been narrativizing this as the glow up journey. It's just been milking that so so hard working on that. It's like you're coming into your own, you're becoming a better person. It is all this like glow around like the this huge self-improvement thing to be smaller. And it is it's really frustrating to watch as a fat person. Really frustrating. Um, and the actions that Mistress is doing as well in her act, because these last two episodes both have been largely centered around look how much weight I've lost in every way. Um, she there was a last the episode before last there was a runway category of suits, Terama suits, suits that tore away to some other to gown or something like that, and um, she wore a fat suit. I have a whole video on the problem of fat suits. Fat suits are a serious problem because they give a sort of impression as if um, our bodies are like removable. It's just like yeah, it's very dehumanizing, and also it was a terrible, they always look terrible, but this one was particularly bad. The transformer into this gown, and ooh, look, I'm making a big transformation. Um, and then in this last episode, it was a talent show, and she did a whole song and performance around a ad for Ozempic, as opposed to Ozempic, with this whole song that again involved having a this time with cutouts a before and after thing, and then in her lyrics she referenced every fat queen who has been on the show before in a sort of a it she has the persona she has created is um very drama focused, very down on other people. I find it bullying. I know that a lot of people enjoy that drama. I do not. Um I think shade is fun when the queens are all participating and they all sort of like each other a fair bit, and it's just kind of just good natured ribbing. Um but when there's a sense that the people when there's a genuine sense of dislike, it becomes uncomfortable. And she also she was bullying Aja, who uh is a queen who has struggled a lot with body issues of various kinds and identity issues, and is just my heart goes out to Aja. And it was just like she had drama with Tina Burner earlier in the season, and it really those two really seemed to dislike each other, and it made it really unpleasant to watch. Um, and I know, and I know people like drama, but it's just so much, and of course the editing is just playing that up. Um, so it was very much the referencing every other fat queen who has been on the show before. It just it felt really mean spirited. It was just like, a look what I lost and they didn't. And it just was the last straw for me. I was just like, no, no, I really hate this. I really, really hate this. There is a way in which we could just put it all on Mistress's shoulder and say, she's just a bad queen. But the edit is playing this up. And it's not the first time that the edit has done the um it's not the first time that the production has not been has been unkind to fat people. And I know they're also doing the journey edit with Ginger Minge, although she is she has other talents besides weight loss and drama. So it's not the only thing about Ginger Minge. And there's controversy because it does feel a bit like some things have been rigged for her, but um I enjoy her as a queen, although probably, yeah, she probably has had too many shots at the thing. But yeah, like the show is really leading into the narrativizing of um, you know, fatness as a trauma that is being overcome. And it's not. It's not an illness that you cure. It's not trauma you overcome. There are illnesses that connect to weight, uh, but that doesn't. But like, imagine if you did research around the correlation between like coughing and dying, and was like, oh look, it's correlated. So anytime you were confronted with someone who coughed, you just diagnose them as coughing and told them to stop coughing because they're going to die. That's effectively the way often weight is treated. Like that, yeah. But also, whenever there are roasts, there's often some thin person making mean-spirited fat jokes. I'm not fond of roasts generally, but that particular like that particular level of punching down, it's just really unpleasant. Um, and it's just like again and again there is a narrativizing of um, fat is entertaining. You can have a fat funny queen, but they're not it's undesirable. They're not going to win, and anyone who loses weight, that is automatically treated as this big accomplishment. And queens are often celebrated for having tiny waists, and it's like, well, sometimes you know, just different bodies are different. Different bodies are beautiful in different ways. I worry about the narratives that are being spun, that are being perpetuated, and that are uncritically being delivered to young people. Weight is a very complicated issue for queer folks. It's one of those ones that is a bit dependent on gender presentation of it because it's less it's less of an issue for sapphics. It's more around people who are seeking to appeal to the male gaze. Um, Although there are also uh, issues around people who are concerned about their own gender presentation for trans and non-binary people. So it can be a very complicated space. This is why I am trying to approach this carefully and thoughtfully. So bear with me for for that. So I want to define some terms because we're talking about intentional weight loss. So when we're talking about intentional weight loss, it's weight that you've lost due to some kind of intervention that you intentionally did. Drugs, surgery, diet. As opposed to you sometimes people lose weight as a side effect of medication or condition or just a change in habits. Some because uh, the fatness is fatness is a very complicated phenomenon. It is not an illness, but it can correlate with illnesses. So it can be weight gain and weight loss can be symptoms of illnesses or side effects of medication, or um, they can be fairly neutral things and that just happen to the human body. um, Particularly, significant changes happen when around puberty and menopause and childbirth that are big hormone changes. On also, we need to do more research, but it appears that it has the transition also can have effects. Um, Hormone changes, and yeah, what happens to a person's body, what they do to their body is, as long as you're not hurting other people, mostly their business. Bit of a fuzzy edge when it comes to anyone who is deliberately harming themselves. What causes bias and what can be deemed fat phobic, although I prefer the term anti fat bias, um, is the narratives that we spin around it, the way that we talk about weight loss. Um, like the way that the posts that people make on social media, um, or when it comes to anyone in the public eye in any sphere, the way that the press could talk about it. Think about the discussions that were happening around Adele's body when she lost weight, and she was trying mostly not to participate in those. um, or the discussions that were happening around Rebel Wilson's body, which she was very deliberately participating in, to talk to, including, using it as an opportunity to sell things. Drawing a distinction specifically around how we narrativize around weight loss. There are certain narratives in the discourse around weight loss, certain ways that they're always stories that they're always framed into. The story of the journey, and how, it's the glow up. Automatically losing weight is automatically treated as a glow up. Well, unless it becomes too much. Because there's no perfect body. um but the discourse would always like to tell you that there is. um but the you can do it too narratives, the inspiration porn, yeah, treating it as inspiration, journey, self actualization. It is Uh, it's a difficult. It's not a good narrative. It's a difficult thing, and it's very stigmatizing on people who are fat, and very isolating because the most of the time intentional weight loss doesn't work long term. It can often work very well short term, and you get a lot of congratulations and a lot of, oh, look what you've accomplished, um in the short term, and then most of the time, like over 90 some percent of the time, the weight will come back. And the silence is often deafening, if not, outright critique. But there are a small percentage of people who do manage to sustain weight loss long term. And there are also people, a camp that I have tended to belong in, whenever I lost weight in the past, tended to then regain more. Even if I didn't stuck with the diet, because this is the thing, that the diets they're not really, most of these interventions are not meant to be long term, including Ozempic, um, which is what a lot of the narratives at the moment are around, is this, the GLP ones, the new drugs, which are very effective in the short term to a degree. um, they do come with risks, and we don't know what the long term problem risks are, because they haven't been studied long enough. Unfortunately, a lot of weight loss interventions, the research tends to be less than 5 years, so they're rarely studied long term. I highly recommend listening to Maintenance Phase for more on the science. They're good at the science. I'm sticking with the representation and narratives here. So yeah, like this, it's a narrative that I have fallen for myself. I hold my hands up. The last time I did a big weight loss journey, thing, when I did a major intervention, which really just means doctors gave me an eating disorder. Um, I lost over 100 pounds, and I was very proud of it. And I was treating it as an accomplishment, and I was being congratulated constantly on this achievement. And it really feels like an achievement because you are working so hard for it. Like treating it like to make it work, you often have to treat it like a job. It's just like it's all you think about. It's all you do. It's all you focus on. So it feels like a accomplishment when it works. Problem is, you know, that it long term it doesn't really work. It comes back and you put so much of yourself into it. Like how many things could I have accomplished if I had put the energy that I put to dieting to anything else? Um anyway, so yeah, these narratives are pervasive, um and you're not a bad person for falling for them. It is what it is. Well, it's the narratives that are fun in pop culture. But we should, by now, we've been talking about it for a while. We've had a lot of discussions around fat representation, been, you know, research. I believe we should be able to hold public figures and um, something like a show like Drag Race to a higher standard. We should be able to talk about the need for responsibility because we know that these narratives can be really detrimental to young people who and well people of any age who suffer from body dysmorphia, body issues. Particularly susceptible are young people. And so what's the ultimate takeaway? um like I'm not here to cancel Mistress Isabelle Brooks or Ginger Minge or RuPaul or or Drag Race. um like I said, I enjoy Drag Race, and I think most of these people have relatively, all right intentions. And if we're going to cancel RuPaul, it should be for the fracking issue. What I would like ultimately is for people to be more thoughtful and responsible about the narratives they spin around weight loss. Like, this isn't probably going to be seen by Mistresses Bell Books or RuPaul or Ginger Minge. But if you're watching this, if and consider, if you are losing weight, maybe be careful about how you talk about it. Make sure people want before and afters before you show it. Just be thoughtful about how the words that you're saying about weight loss might impact fat people around you, might impact the overall climate of the way fat people are treated. Um, like your actions aren't going to do much, but they're what you're in control of. So if you can try and um, do the best you can to just not contribute uh, to unhealthy narratives. And if you're someone who is watching Drag Race with young people or with anyone who has some sensitivity around body stuff, it's good to sort of have a conversation and unpack the that it's okay for bodies to be various shapes and sizes, um, and uh, it doesn't need to all be around, um, around trying to make oneself smaller. Like there's a lot of other things you can do to make yourself healthier, or to just that actually have far more effective. Like just in terms of just trying to move your body and just feel better as a metric rather um, than focusing on your waist size. It has been very odd personally in the last year and a bit um, with getting my diabetes under control after I got diagnosed. I have lost. I don't know how much because I don't weigh myself, but I know that I've gone down a couple sizes, and um, it's weird. Weird feelings about this. The accomplishment is not the weight loss. The accomplishment is the readings being better, and following the instructions. The my body being a bit smaller is just sort of a byproduct of that. It's complicated. It's a thing I haven't really talked about because like I don't want to spin into any narratives about it. Like it is just a thing that is happening. And it is strange that people are treating me better because there's less of me. People treating me more human because there is less of me. And as something I've experienced before in weight loss, when I was doing it intentionally, and it is a disturbing experience, to be honest. Yeah, it's these things are all very, very complicated, and it is not helpful to just be like, "Oh, the grand weight loss journey. You're becoming more yourself." And isn't this a glow up? But like, as much as Drag Race always wants to spin those kinds of narratives because that's part of a reality TV, is just like talk about journeys and the glow ups and the thing. It's like there are better things to talk about. There is, you know, the confidence a person gains from um, you know, achieving better sewing and winning the challenges, and getting to know each other, and the if you want a transformation journey, the dolls are right there. um and that's getting to the journey of getting to express yourself as yourself better is but like we just need to be more thoughtful about narratives around weight loss, and just the whole like I'm better than you because I lost the weight, just like that really pissed me off from Mistress, and that really is what it felt like her song was doing. I just no. Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. um if this is something you're doing for yourself and it feels good, that's not my business. I'm not going to criticize you for it. I don't have anything to say on that. But contributing to narratives that everyone must lose weight, that losing weight is easy, and especially like that when there is something like Ozempic, which is it's a serious medication. It is a risky medication. It's also one that people with diabetes need. It's not what I'm treating it mine with, but people who are, it's a great medication for people who need it for that. And when something's in limited supply, to then use like a lot of people who are using it for who aren't even larger fat people using it because this the desire to be thin to fit the patriarchy, the beauty standards, which is eugenics, and do a whole thing on that. But it just it is a serious medication that should be treated seriously and not like advertised and not, uh, promoted. Because these things can be quite dangerous. There was in the 90s there was a whole thing with fen-phen and Redux drugs, which seemed like the miracle thing, and that caused a lot of people serious heart problems. And there's a whole history of drugs for weight loss that have caused serious conditions, and sometimes these are things people take risks for consciously and carefully, but also people can be desperate and stupid around wanting to lose weight. And eating disorders are a real problem. And the more that we treat thinness as a virtue and as accomplishment, the more that can promote, not directly, but it can be a sort of contributing factor to an environment that that contributes to eating disorders. I'm not saying that RuPaul is causing people to, but like the narratives that are being put out need to be more responsible. We need to be more carefully thought through. We need to be more responsible. That's ultimately, just the issue is just be conscious of the narratives that are, being spun. So that's it from me. Hopefully editing managed to make this make sense. How do you like my new earrings? I got them at Pride the other weekend. So thanks as always for my Patreon supporters whose names are being shown now. I really appreciate your support. If you want to support me, the links to do that are in the doobly-doo. You can be a Patreon supporter, or there's ways to tip me if you want to tip me. But things are really tough for a lot of folks right now. So just to do your best to be kind to one another and protect the dolls, and find ways to find joy in your life. Take care of each other. We may all survive 2025.